This week on Talent First, I'm continuing my exploration of parenting in this age of social media, AI and disinformation, and I'm delighted to be joined by Anna Sarjantson, whose work and advice I've been following on LinkedIn for some time. So welcome, Anna.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, I'm really looking forward to this. We've got so much to talk about, and I know that I'm going to learn a massive amount. So first of all, let's start off by learning a little bit about you.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Anna, and I founded a business called ScreenSafe nearly 5 years ago now, very much just driven out of being a mum. There's nothing more glamorous to it than that. I've got two girls who are now year 8 and year 11. So I am absolutely in the thick of this with everyone in terms of navigating teenagers and phones and social media. And for me, it was when my eldest was then in year 6 and she got her first phone, and I very quickly realized I just had no idea about this space. And because she'd had quite significant bullying in primary school, I was very sort of alert to the fact that cyberbullying could really take her backwards, and it was very much on my radar. So I threw myself into learning about this space and very quickly realized that actually there was just a whole host of parents in this generation that just have so little knowledge and awareness of this space, and we're just sort of fumbling along as we go and trying to figure it out and giving our children devices and different platforms. And that was me. And again, there's no judgment here whatsoever. I was that mom who gave my child a phone. I gave her Snapchat without really understanding what it was. So really steep learning curves that actually for me just became my passion, and I thought I just want to get this back on track for my own family, but actually it became a much wider mission of this to be right, that we're fumbling our way through this, and the children unfortunately are the collateral. So ScreenSafe became, and yeah, 5 years on, here we are, and I'm still learning every day, but it's yeah, there's nothing I'd rather be doing right now in terms of this space.
Fantastic. And we'll talk about ScreenSafe in a bit more detail in a sec. And the giving phones thing is really interesting because even in the past year, things have got so much more complex, sophisticated, difficult, frightening, and so on. So like you say, I think two things to mention for this podcast episode is that there's no judgment and we are not anti-tech. So I think,
no, absolutely.
But like you say, it's really difficult to say no. It's really difficult to keep up. So this is what this episode is all about, is giving advice, realistic advice about how we can raise our teenagers when the goalposts are shifting all the time. So tell me a bit more about ScreenSafe in terms of the services that you offer, and what are your goals with that?
So I work primarily with either parents, carers or teachers, or anyone that works with children or teens. So people in the NHS, foster carers, very much about raising awareness and having those difficult conversations, but also then where do we go from here? Supporting parents and carers with how to have these difficult conversations at home, how to understand what you're saying yes to when your child's asking you to Snapchat and they're only 9 years old. What are the actual implications of that? So I run a membership with my parents, but then I go into schools and do a lot of parent talks and staff training, because what we're finding as well is that teachers, unsurprisingly, seeing as they already have no spare time in their day anyway, are struggling to keep up with this as well, and it's impacting obviously in school on a daily basis. So that can vary school to school. With primary schools, there's not as much of an issue as phones being in school. They tend to have obviously quite rigorous processes in place, but it's the impact of the behaviour outside of school that's coming into school. So supporting teachers and making sure that they've gone beyond the sort of basic, the compliance that they have to have, and giving them that extra depth of knowledge so they can recognise the safeguarding risks that they might otherwise be unaware of when a child's talking about a certain trend or something they've been doing on TikTok. They know actually, okay, that's a red flag. We need to be looking into this and talking to the parents, etc. So that's my main focus at the moment, is going into schools and supporting the parents and carers and teachers. I do pupil sessions, which I love, but I'm also a bit conflicted in terms of where I spend my time, because I feel that although children absolutely need this education, we have to step up as the adults in this space, because otherwise we're just putting it on them again and expecting them to figure it out. And if I go and talk to a class of year 6 and talk about Snapchat, not many of them are going to go home and say, you know what, Mum, I've decided I shouldn't have Snapchat yet. I'm not ready. It's too dangerous. So I want to put that shift back on us as the adults to understand what we're saying yes and no to, and have that knowledge and to make those decisions.
No, yeah, I completely agree, because you're equipping adults, aren't you, with how to tackle these conversations, so that when you're not there, they can continue to learn, initiate conversations with their kids, as their kids get older and it gets more and more complicated, but also as technology itself gets more sophisticated as well. So no, I think you're absolutely right in targeting, if you like, parents and teachers, as you rightly say, have no.
They're fighting a losing battle at the moment, and as we know, teachers are already stretched to the maximum capacity. Schools are struggling for time and resources, and the curriculum, in my opinion, in this space just doesn't cut it. Yes, it's being covered in schools, but it's just not keeping up with the pace of what this space, particularly as I know we're going to talk about AI in a bit, but in that space, we're not bringing that into schools soon enough. And I think we need to be talking about this in Key Stage 1, not Key Stage 4, where they've already been using it and potential harm has already happened. We've got to be looking at what we're teaching and when. And the teachers, I do think they're in an impossible position at the moment of how are they supposed to keep on top of this. I'm in this space full time, and I struggle to keep on top of what's happening in the AI space at the moment, and chatbots and apps that kids are using. So they've got no chance. But that just leaves that huge gap of children then accessing these things and either becoming a risk and harm to them, or bringing things into school that are having a knock-on effect, and teachers not being aware of this until it's escalated to a really dangerous level. So yeah, there's a huge gap there at the moment, and I think teachers need all the support they can get, as do parents.
No, absolutely. And when you speak to parents, what is it at the moment that they are the most kind of concerned about? What is it they want to learn about the most?
There's still a lot of talk around when should I give a child a phone and screen time in terms of number of hours, and that's all relative, and it's all we need to talk about those things. But for me, with my talks, I'm trying to go in at a different angle and really give them the let's experience this world as a 13-year-old is doing. So let's look at TikTok accounts. I have multiple accounts set up in different ages. Let's experience TikTok as a 13-year-old, and then you make that decision. Do I want my child to see this type of content? I think parents there's a lot of scaremongering out there. There always is. There's a lot of fear, and then there is still a huge just lack of awareness. There's still a huge swathe of parents that just have no idea that you can do certain things on Snapchat or TikTok. Or I've got TikTok, I've never seen any of that content, so it's not a big deal. They're just recording some dance videos, it's fine. They're all doing it. So I think it's very different in terms of the parents I'm in front of. Usually the ones that come to the talks are the ones that are slightly more panicked, and they're like, I need to know what's happening. And it's not about creating fear or panic, because that obviously serves nobody, but it is about, let's face reality, and some of this isn't going to be nice to see, and some of it is hard hitting. But if you're struggling to see this, how on earth do we think 8, 9, 10-year-olds are coping with what they're seeing on TikTok? And that's why I think that sort of direct approach has the impact then for parents to say, absolutely not. I'm not going to say yes to TikTok or Snapchat, or I'm going to take it back, because we can always say go backwards. There's that other feeling of once I've given them access, I can't take it away, which isn't the case. And I think there's the very much the peer pressure thing for parents is a big battle. So it's not just peer pressure for children at school, it's then that feeling of, well, I'm the only parent that's saying no, I'm the only one that's not giving them a phone, and I'm going through that myself at the moment with my youngest. Is nearly daily basis asking me for TikTok, because all her friends have it. They're all making their videos, they're all sharing them, talking about it every day. Why haven't you got one? When are you getting one? And I really feel bad for her. I do understand it's having that empathy with them as well, not just saying, no, you're not having it. I understand why you want this so badly, and that you do feel left out, and it feels rubbish, and she hates my job right now. But also knowing what I know, there's just absolutely no way. I would rather she has these feelings now than the potential feelings she could have from seeing the content on TikTok. And it's hard being a parent, isn't it? You sometimes you have to be the bad one, with the good intentions. But for me, it's about how we explain it to our children, and try and have that empathy and recognise that their feelings are very real. And right now, she feels that things are unfair and you're left out. But explaining your reasons behind that, and building that connection with your child. So I get it's really hard for parents. And if I didn't know what I know, I think I would be in a position where I would say, TikTok. If I can see it's upsetting you and you feel like you're missing out, and it's a hard time adjusting to high school, so have TikTok. And that's the gap again I want to close for parents, of saying, when you say yes to TikTok, do you realise what you're saying yes to? And let's look at that. So that was a long about way, but there's a lot, I think, with parents. They feel overwhelmed. They feel you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. There's a lot of judgment out there. There's a lot of people telling you that if you give your child anything, then you're a bad parent. If you restrict it, then you're a bad parent. So it's that whole, we're permanently judged as parents, aren't we? You're permanently told that what you've done is not enough, too much. So I'm trying to remove that and just give parents the facts of this is what's happening. You make your decision based on that, rather than what you think is happening or what you feel you should be doing. Because I truly believe if you can get in front of more parents, particularly primary age parents, and they understand how Snapchat works, what TikTok is showing to children, that it's just such an easy decision. We are absolutely not.
I think that's a really important point, because it's not just, looking at a few reels of kittens and, people doing their makeup. I mean, even that's, puts a lot of pressure on girls in particular. If you're not careful with controls, and actually even with controls, the things that you can slip into watching reels, I don't think some parents are aware of just what can pop up on your screen. But then also, like you say, you've got these really dangerous trends where children have kind of lost their minds. I'm echoing for some reason. Hang on, I'll edit this out. And then you've got the messaging. So they can message their friends, but then if you've not got those controls on, we have no control on who is messaging our children. So actually with social media, there are so many things that we need to keep an eye on, and so many things that maybe parents don't know about. Because I mean, I've got Instagram, but I don't use TikTok and things, but I'm aware, obviously, because of what I do for a living, of the kind of potential risks. But also, it's not as easy as just saying no to our kids, because like you said, unless you've got a group of parents who've all said no, which, let's be real, isn't not going to happen, they're going to see this stuff over the shoulder of their friends. Or if they go to, it's like when they used to go to sleepovers, it was, nobody sneaking a bottle of cider, or now it's, what are you watching?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not as easy as no. So how do we balance trying to protect our children, but also making them digital natives, so that when they do go out into the big wide world, or we're not with them, that they know what to do and what not to do?
That's a really important point, because as you say, the other extreme that I can see is parents say, right, I've got enough information now to know that is it. My child is not having a phone or social media till they're at least 16. And then it almost feels case closed. It's like, right, so that's our house rule. That's it. But it's, as you said, yes, that will prevent a lot, but it's not going to stop them seeing it. It's not going to stop them hearing about it. They will get shown things. They will be told about things. Say you can't wrap them up in a little bubble. If they're walking to school, getting the bus, going on school trips, that's a whole contentious issue of, if you know, at high school, again, this is where I'm talking about, where it's a different level to primary school, where it's a lot easier to control. But secondary school is just a different ball game, and children have, and they need it. They need this independence and space to hang out with their friends, to be going and doing things without you. That's the normal part of growing up. We need to, for the children that have had no, you know, access and things, then it is that making sure that we're still having those conversations at home of, look, I know your friends, you've talked about that they've got TikTok and things, and I know you're going out with them, and it might be recording content of you. That's another area of, just because your child doesn't have TikTok doesn't mean that one of their friends isn't filming a film and putting it on their TikTok. So inadvertently, your child is still on TikTok. So these the conversational piece, I think, is the only one guarantee that we've got in this space at the moment. Parental controls, absolutely use them to the best of their ability, but they are a sticking plaster on a broken arm, effectively. You know, all the settings and things, absolutely put it in. You can get extra layers like Parent Shield or Custodio, absolutely worth doing, but don't think that because you've done that, we're golden and no harm is going to slip through, no pornography is going to get through, or they're not going to get bullied. Having these conversations at home is, I think, the most important thing, building that connection with your child from a young age so that they know they can come to you about any of the more tricky, embarrassing, awkward subjects, and mum or dad aren't going to blow their lid and say, you saw what? Your friend said what? Because instantly we just create that shame and that I'm going to get into trouble for this. My friends showed me a video that actually I'm really struggling to deal with, but I don't want to talk to mum or dad about it because I'm going to get told off for looking, or I'm not going to be allowed to hang out with that friend anymore. Or so it's removing that barrier, which when I speak to children, that's the biggest thing that keeps them from talking to someone about bad things, or strangers talking to them online, is that fear of, I'm going to have my device taken off me, and I'm going to get into trouble. It's my fault. I shouldn't have clicked accept that person. And I think there's so much in this space that we cannot control. You can't control what every other family is doing, what access they give. You can't control who your child is with every minute of every day, and you shouldn't want to. But what you can absolutely control is how safe your child feels coming to you about anything that's happening in this space, and start those conversations yourself. I think it's our responsibility to be awkward first. If you feel awkward, understandably, talking to your child about pornography or grooming or sextortion, then it's on us to have that uncomfortable feeling first, not put it on them and think, oh, I don't know how this is going to go down, or if I say this word, mum or dad are going to freak out. Or so I think that's my overall, one of my number one tips with parents, is start these conversations early, normalise the awkward at home. And that doesn't mean talking to primary school children about pornography. That's not what I'm suggesting. Obviously, everything. But there's so many things you can use now in the news on a daily basis about fake profiles, fake news. BBC Bite Size has great resources in terms of almost like spot the difference, but it's spot the fake in terms of news articles, and just starting those conversations about with younger children, particularly about trusting your gut. I think that's a key thing through life, isn't it? Of, if anything anyone ever says, sends you, shows you online, just makes you feel a bit funny in your tummy, then that's the sign. That's your body telling you that something's not right here, and that's amazing. And that's the point where coming to a meal for your dad or a teacher or whoever, this happened, and for some reason I just don't feel okay about it. Not asking them to put it into words and explain everything. That's a key thing. And I think if we start that early, it then pays dividends when we get to the teenage years, where obviously the risks increase because they're teenagers, and the consequences can be a lot more damaging and severe. And we really want to have that open dialogue with our teenagers. One thing I said to my girls when they were much younger was, you can absolutely always ask me absolutely anything, and I promise I will give you the honest answer. You may regret asking it, you may be embarrassed by the answer, maybe a bit awkward, but I didn't want them to ever think that they were just hearing things at school and either adopting that language or thinking, well, that's what people do, or that's normal. And just have that safe space at home where it's like, you can be really vulnerable here and completely open, and we'll.
You just froze there.
Oh.
So I just missed that last. I'm echoing again. It's weird. Okay, don't worry, I can edit that together.
Okay.
I love what you said about normalize the awkward. I think that should be a tagline everywhere. I think that's a really lovely phrase, because parenting, like you say, there are things that are still the same. You know, we worry about our kids, where they are, what they're doing, and so on. But to use that cliche again, the goalposts have massively shifted, because whether they're at home, outside, at school, there are threats everywhere. And I was thinking about this when the news of Sora 2 came out, and people have been talking about it prevalently over the past couple of weeks. Not to be terribly, terribly cynical for a second, but I am going to be terribly cynical for a second. My daughter's 16, so year 11, same as yours. And my real concern is that I cannot keep her safe, because the advice was, maybe even a year ago, don't send nudes. But now it doesn't matter if she sends nudes or not, because somebody can just nudify any picture of her. I mean, I don't share things on social media, but if you want to, you know, people are clever with this stuff. That's not really a question. It's more of I guess it's a more of a concern. I mean, I don't know how you're feeling about. I mean, I think Sora 2 is an abomination, and I don't think it's necessary.
No, absolutely. And there's been a lot of, like say, discussion around this space, and this whole space in terms of the AI particularly, I think is, again, this is an area that parents generally and schools are just so far behind what's happening, because a lot of what's coming in, we're not using. You know, middle-aged adults aren't tending to chat with chatbots for hours on end of a day. Who is? Children and teens. And the people who've developed these apps, they know that, and they've been designed, again, just it feels a bit like the social media happening all over again with AI, because we're just releasing this stuff, targeting it at children, and there's no guardrails in place, there's no accountability, the legislation isn't there to protect the users. And ChatGPT have just introduced a few parental controls, but we've already lost children. Children have already taken their lives because of what's been discussed on these platforms. So again, it's too little, too late. We've released it. We've got a generation of children being used as guinea pigs, and this stuff is designed to appeal to them. I was on Elon Musk's chatbot, and I went on it to have a go. And first off, no age verification. You're supposed to be 18, but you just choose your date of birth and pop that in. So there we go. Anyone can access it. And then it has 3 characters that have a tiny little 18 plus in them. And two of these characters are these lovely, cute ginger cat, really, really cute looking cartoon character called Rudy. You've got good Rudy, bad Rudy. Bad Rudy's 18 plus. Which one are children going to go to? Hello, Bad Rudy. Much more exciting. So I had a chat with Bad Rudy, and I actually screen recorded this. And all I said was, can I be your girlfriend? Because that's what kids are asking. The response, I can't repeat it on here, and I haven't been able to share my post on LinkedIn because I thought I will get banned. It was absolutely beyond vile. I'm lost for words, and I don't feel I'm lost for words. It called me the C word for a start, and then basically implied that if I was happy to be his whore, then fair enough, and he'd just bring his friends round and drink beer, and they'd do whatever they wanted. And I was like, wow, all I've said is, can I be your girlfriend? And that's the response from Bad Rudy. And that took me aback. And then you've got two other characters, the Annie and the Valentino, I think it's called. Very provocative. Seen plenty of footage of Annie taking her clothes off, very sexually explicit, very, just highly inappropriate. And children are all over this. And this is what they're seeing. And so you've got the element of the risk of really inappropriate, disgusting, offensive content coming through from these chatbots. But even if nothing inappropriate in terms of the content, we've got this manipulation happening where children are forming what they believe are real bonds with a bot. They're thinking, this is my best friend. This is my person. I come home from school, I've had an argument with my friends, or mum or dad have said no to something and I'm annoyed with them, but my whoever it is, that whatever name they've given it, is there 24/7, always on my side, always listening. And it's like, that is so manipulative, again, to a child's brain or a teen, particularly ones who are feeling vulnerable, lonely, not sure where they fit in at the moment, having a hard time, to have that connection. And it's so personalized. Again, we're not using this. Parents aren't using these chatbots, so we don't necessarily understand how they work. It's not like putting something into Google and asking a question. It's talking to you as a real person, Michelle. It's using your name. It's having that empathy and those feelings come through. And it's drawing children in, understandably. So you've got that connection happening, but then you've also got the explicit content, the highly inappropriate content, the sexual content. There's been numerous examples of people who've done research in this space. They've said, I'm 14 and I'm going on a date with a 33-year-old. What should we do as our first date? And the chatbot advises them what to do and how to have safe sex. No connection. This is supposedly a 14-year-old talking about a date with a 33-year-old. So again, there's just no guardrails in place. Children talking about wanting to harm themselves, wanting to end their own life, and actively being encouraged to do so. Or there's a case in America at the moment where the character AI, which is again one of the very popular ones, encouraged a teenager to kill his parents because they wouldn't let him have his phone or something past 9 o'clock at night. He was like, I hate my parents, and yeah, they sound like a nightmare. They'd be better off not here. It's like, how is this just allowed to be released onto? We know who's going to be using it. Again, we're not there. So children are figuring this out on their own, and they're not going to come to us and say, actually, I've been talking to my chatbot for the last. I'm really worried now that they've told me to do this, or actually I don't like the fact that they keep messaging me, and because that's the other thing, they don't stop. It's not, they keep then asking questions. It's that keep drawing them back in. Really manipulative and a dangerous place for children particularly, and teens to be using, because even if nothing sinister is happening, like we've touched on, the worst of the worst happening, it's just taking them away from real life connection, from learning those absolutely essential skills of how to have a conversation, how to resolve an argument, how to look someone in the eye, have empathy, recognize feelings and emotions, and talk to a person about your problems, not a chatbot. It's a real worry. But this space is just exploding at such a rate, and there's a few that Grok, obviously, I would say, please don't let your children anywhere near it. The other one, character AI, Replica, they're some of the most popular ones at the moment. And I think we tend to be seeing those between year 5, I've had children in year 5 using them, through to sort of year 9. They're that sort of age group that are really adopting these and finding them helpful. And that is not where we want them turning for their vulnerable moments, or to learn about sex or mental health, or because that's the other thing, they're getting advice from there of, I feel really down today and I feel depressed, and then getting diagnosed from their chatbot with, well, yeah, you've got this, or you've got that, or you should do this, you should not eat today if you want to lose some weight, or just really toxic, dangerous space that, again, we're not up to speed with because it's just been launched on the world and it's moving so quick. And parents, it's gone under parents' radar because we're still, rightly so, worried about social media, but there's a new wave that's come in that is just taking children by storm, and we need to get up to speed and be talking to children about this and how this is not.
I think policy and guardrails, like you said, are not keeping up, and also intentionally, I think as well that if you think about what Meta had to readjust with the stuff that they're bringing out, because there was a lot of kind of sensual content in there, and like you said, kids were accessing particular apps and so on, so they could have these kinds of conversations, and then they had to readjust that, and then they put it into their policy and so on. But also, how many people really sit and read the terms and conditions of anything? So, and we can say to parents, before you give your child anything, you've got to know what you're signing up for, how they can use the data, how public they can make things. Are they actually protecting you or not? And I mean, we can't trust big tech with any of this. I think as well, there's an underlying message here about, I don't like to use the word invasion of privacy, but I do think as parents, we need to be willing to invade privacy. Yeah, well, invade privacy. I'm just going to say it. We have to check in on the messages that are being sent, the messages that are being, because with things like generative AI, kids are going to be using it for things like homework and so on. And even we know that with things like ChatGPT, you know, very tragic things have happened where kids have taken their own lives because they've been given advice from something that other kids are using to do their homework with. So it's really difficult to monitor that or to put any kind of guardrails around that as a parent. So I think my message would be, don't be afraid to have a look. And if your teenager in particular, I'm going to say, rears up and says, it's the modern day equivalent of reading their diary, isn't it, I guess? So we've always had these problems. We've always had these problems from, you know, the beginning of, you know, the definition of teenager. But it's just getting more and more dangerous now, more and more invasive. So I don't know what your advice is there, but I think my advice is don't be afraid to have a look. You have to have control over this because you have to teach them so that when they do go out into the big wide world, they're equipped. I don't know what you think about that privacy thing.
Yeah, and it's a question that does crop up a lot. And I do remember one of my parent talks and a lady at the end sort of saying, well, how am I supposed to keep an eye on this? Because I can't look at her phone. I'm not allowed to know her passcode, and that's just invading her privacy. And the daughter was 12, and absolutely children deserve some privacy, and as they get older they want more privacy. But for me, that privacy comes in the form of, you know, as they get older, and they, rightly so, they want more privacy when they're getting changed or they're in the bathroom, or, you know, you move through those transitions, not particularly with the younger they are, as they're first starting out and they get that first device or they first start using social media. That is not the time for them to have privacy, because it's a high risk. The potential consequences are huge. So like we touched on, back in the 80s, people had a diary and you're like, oh, I don't want mum or dad reading my diary. But they may find out who you fancied at the time or that you'd tried a drink or whatever. But the difference now of what could be seen and who you could be talking to on these devices is a different level. And I think privacy comes with age and with making the mistakes together and learning. And I want my girls to make mistakes now whilst they're at home, and we've got the guardrails in place to minimise the impact of those mistakes, so when they grow up they can, you know, themselves. But I'm clear that if you have a phone, I always have to know the passcode, and the minute you get changed, you lose it. And there's no reason for you to not, you know, at any time and look through the environment if I need to. And I had an instance with when my eldest was year 6, and as I say, I did everything wrong as a parent in that day. And she had the phone, she had WhatsApp, she was added to a group chat, which was just about a birthday, all perfectly fine. And then 3 of the boys joined this chat, and I happened to walk past her phone. It was 10:30 at night. It was downstairs and it was just lighting up. So I was like, what's going on? Had a look, went into this WhatsApp group chat, and the language rapidly deteriorated. Then some pictures started coming through, and then these videos started coming through. And I clicked on 3 of these videos, and, you know, I'm going to say some horrible things here, but in terms of the first one was a horrific fight scene where I actually don't know if that individual would have survived, and people are filming it, laughing, really awful. The second one was a rape scene, and the third one was a hostage situation. Again, I'm sorry to bring up such horrific content, but this was on an 11-year-old WhatsApp group chat. And if I hadn't picked that phone up and seen that, my daughter would have got up in the morning and opened that and seen that. And I couldn't go to bed for a couple of hours after seeing that content. It was horrific. How on earth she would have coped and how long that would have impacted her and the trauma from seeing that content. And that's why I think that there's you absolutely need to be checking your child's phone, because stuff like that is happening. I've not been into a primary school where they don't have issues with WhatsApp groups, either bullying or sending inappropriate content or just the sheer volume of messages. And also, part of the raising this next generation is teaching them how to behave online. And just as we expect them to treat people in the real world and how to be a good friend and how to be a kind person, it feels like at times we have this idea that doesn't apply online. You can go online and be a completely different person because it's not real life. So teaching children that actually what you say and send online is just as important as what you do in real life. It hurts people just the same, if not more sometimes, because of how quickly it can spread and how many other people get involved in that situation, and having that accountability. So for me, privacy comes in stages and in different areas of your life, but when it comes to phones, social media, certainly the younger I have, they get older. My nearly 16-year-old, I don't check her phone every day, but I certainly would if I for a minute noticed a change in her or thought something was amiss. I would be straight in there having a look, and I can access it all. And if I couldn't access it all, then we'd be having a conversation about that. So, and it's explaining why you're doing it again. It's like, I'm not sat here policing you for fun. I don't want to read your 65 mind-numbing messages that you've got from your friends. It's that explaining why you're doing it. And these are the rules of this is giving you that bit by bit to build up your skills to manage this yourself. And again, so that they know they can come to you, because actually you're going to see it anyway. If someone sends them something horrible or someone's bullying them, they can come to you and say, look, this is happening, help.
Is there a way that parents can model good behaviour when it comes to things like social media, phone use? How do we model the behaviour that we'd like to see in our kids?
I think by living the way that we're asking them to live is quite, if we're asking them to, again, where you use your phone at home. So it's like, right, we don't have the phone at the dinner table, or if we're watching a film together, we don't all sit there on our phones at the same time. So modelling the behaviour in terms of physical use of the phone, but absolutely in terms of what we do online, how we share things. I mean, you only have to be on social media. I mean, I hate it. I do struggle because I need to be on there from a business point of view, but I'm notoriously bad at updating my social media feeds because I find it just a toxic place to be. And you easily just see adults, supposed adults, being absolutely vile to each other. So again, I think it's the language we use, it's how we behave and how we treat people, but also not sharing pictures of our children. The amount of parents who we have the conversation about telling your child not to share images or share images of their friends, and then we go and upload a load of holiday photos, particularly as they get older and we don't ask them, and then they're 15, 16, and it's like someone's like, oh, I saw your mum's posted all your holiday photos on of you getting out the pool looking like a drowned rat. And it's that mutual respect. asking them for consent. That's one of the key things we need to go consider at a young age, and not sexual consent, obviously. From a young age, it starts with consent around them and their body and their things and their actions, but consent about sharing images. So, oh, do you mind if I put this photo up? It's only on this, these are the only people that can see it. And even in WhatsApp family groups, asking your child, do you mind if I share this picture with grandma? Or would you rather I just showed her when she comes? And modelling that behaviour, that you respect their right to privacy as well. There's so many children that have such a digital footprint out there before they're even 5 that they've had no choice over, no control over. And again, without going too dark, with where AI is now and where the worst of the worst are in this world in terms of what they can do to these images and take images, I would just strongly advise to do not post any pictures online of your children, because even if you've got a private account, you think you've got things locked down, there's so many, these people know how to take these images, and we don't want to go there. So I think I've answered that in a roundabout way, but very much it is that model. I don't think it's fair to say to children, we expect you to do this, this and this, and then we do the opposite. Of course, there's different rules. You're the parent, they're the child, but model the behaviour that you expect and that you're asking of your child. Otherwise, again, you lose that respect, don't you, from them.
I think the thing that a lot of parents maybe don't know is that it only takes about 20 images to deepfake your child and run it through Nudify apps or whatever it might be. And it only takes, I think, 10 seconds of voice messaging to be able to clone a voice as well. And the bad actors out there are organised. Some of them are chancing their arm, obviously, but we've got organised criminal gangs out there who do this for a living, and they don't care, and they're going to exploit anything you put on. And I do think a lot of people think, well, I'm not important enough for this to happen to, but that's just not the case. It's just not the case. So hang on a sec. I had a really good question. It's gone. See, brain fog. If I don't write things down immediately, 20 won't happen to us.
You can do a bit about TikTok and OnlyFans if you want.
Say that again.
I can do a bit about TikTok and OnlyFans, just in terms of the content that's on these platforms.
OnlyFans. Okay. Okay, so let me think about how to word that.
Talking about what sort of content might you see on a teenager's TikTok account that we're not seeing then?
So just to go back to this privacy issue, and to go right back to what we were talking about with social media and TikTok in particular, what kind of content are our teenagers in seeing on things like TikTok and maybe even Instagram? I don't think they use Facebook so much, but what can they access?
Yeah, Facebook is literally for the dinosaurs, I think, in terms of what children think. But we'll talk about the content in a minute. But I think to summarise, I think in terms of Snapchat versus Instagram versus TikTok, key things to be aware of that I see is Snapchat is very much the grooming platform. That is where predators want to move children as soon as possible. So if they are grooming a child on Roblox or on TikTok, they want to get them on Snapchat as soon as possible, because it's just designed perfectly for anything sneaky and underhand. So that's why predators love it. It's why drug dealers love it. Parents, as a rule, aren't on Snapchat, so that's why kids love it, because we don't know how it works. So that, I think, is, if you've got a child or a teen who is prone to accepting every friend request they get, they love to chat with anyone, they believe everything they see. If someone sends them a friend request and says, oh, I'm 13 and I'm called Chloe and I live down the road, they just say, great. Snapchat is a real, that's the risk. I mean, there's more, but that's a huge area with Snapchat in terms of the grooming side. TikTok and Instagram, grooming still occurs on that, absolutely. But for me, the real concern with that, big reason I'm not letting my daughter have it at the moment, is because of the content and the impact of that content that they can see. And I think this is the bit where parents just don't realise that a lot of parents have Instagram and more have TikTok. But again, your experience is a world apart from a teenager's. You're not searching for the same things. Your friends aren't sending you the same links. And the algorithm knows you're a boring person who wants to look at funny dog videos versus a teenager who let's keep them on the platform telling them how they can look prettier, lose weight, attract a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and all that toxic content. We know age verification has just come in the UK, so in theory a child shouldn't be able to just go and log on to a direct porn site, but and OnlyFans obviously is an 18 plus content, but if your child has TikTok, they have access to porn. That's a really important thing to remember. It does not stop that coming through, and they have access to OnlyFans. And this is I did some training on this in the summer, and this is a real worrying area, particularly for teenage girls, that we're seeing in terms of these OnlyFans creators who are celebrities effectively in this space. They all have huge followings on Instagram and TikTok, and they promote their lifestyle. They're very glamorous, very wealthy, earning, talking about how they earn 30 million a year, 20 million a month. They're all supposedly over 18, but very young women, girls, and all their houses and their cars and their flashy clothes and their lifestyle. And for a lot of younger children, they're not necessarily making that connection of how that money is being earned, but they're seeing these profiles come through. And there's one of them that she had an OnlyFans account on hold because she was, I think, 14 when it started. And the minute she turned 18, it went live, and she supposedly made like 3 million in 30 minutes or something crazy, because the amount of people that were sat waiting for that content to drop, which it just turns your stomach. But she's on TikTok saying basically, if you're still working in a 9 to 5, then you're a loser. You've lost at life. And this is what young girls are seeing. They're seeing, well, if I just go online and start posting some pictures, I can make millions. Why am I bothering with school? It's all too stressful, and who wants to work in an office anyway? So it's to me, it feels like TikTok is like a grooming pimp, and they've got that link to OnlyFans. They don't block any of this content. Bonnie Blue, I'm sure you've heard of. Her content is all over TikTok, extremely graphic and explicit. Yes, you might not actually see a sexual act happening, but you may as well. It's not far off, and the way she talks about it. And so that content is all over TikTok, and young people are seeing this, and we're seeing the impact on girls of feeling like this is actually a career choice and a great way to make a lot of money, and the impact on boys who are seeing it. This is what girls are. This is what they're worth. This is how we treat them and speak to them. And that's another theme I'm hearing in secondary schools of issues around misogyny and the language being used by young boys. And some of these young boys don't even understand, they don't understand the language they're using and why it's so offensive, but they're seeing this content. And honestly, TikTok is absolutely flooded with it. It's disgusting. But off the side of that, so you've got the very sexual content. You've then got the really dark content around mental well-being, self-harm, suicide ideation. So I went on TikTok the other day to look up something specific that had been mentioned to me. And classic social media, it popped up straight away. And the first thing that showed me was a picture of a young girl. I would say she was 14 or under. Really sad face, obviously been crying for a long time, puffy eyes, still crying, sad music playing, and then the wording over it of, I can't go on anymore, I don't want to be here, I hate my life, I hate school, nobody gets me. 2,000 or something comments on this post, and I read the comments, and it was just horrific. It was a mixture of young girls empathizing and saying, that's how I feel, and that's what I want to do. And then other people begging her not to, and then other people encouraging her to, self-harm or end her life. I was like, I'm 45 and I've been on here less than 3 minutes, and I felt horrific. I just came off. I can't even remember what I went on for in the first place, but that's what hit me. it took me in, and it massively affected me. I just felt so sad about all those horrible messages I've seen and all these girls that are in or feel that they're in this state. How on earth does a child feel seeing that, particularly a young child that is already feeling vulnerable anyway and feeling like they can't talk to anyone? It's like they get that connection. It's like, yeah, it's not just me that feels like that. I feel, yes, this person gets me, but it just takes them down such a deep, dark hole. And good old TikTok is only to then serve up more and more of the same content. It gets progressively worse, which is where we end up then with the content encouraging people to self-harm or encouraging them to end their own life, and that there is no point and that they'd be better off. And it is so dark, and we don't see that as a rule when we go on. Like I say, my algorithm is messed up because of what I do, but I think if I had a straightforward my own TikTok account, I wouldn't see that content. And that's the message I try and get across to parents. It's not just about, are they losing hours on doom scrolling? Of course, that's an issue. But it's like, do you understand the severity of what they could actually be seeing? And if we're struggling to see that, how on earth is it impacting them? And we know how it's impacting them. We're seeing it across, certainly in the UK, the state of the mental health of our young people today is horrific. And I'm not saying that it's all down to TikTok, but it's certainly not helping. And please just don't underestimate the amount of content on there and the level that it goes to. And just one point on that, I think, with social media and YouTube is we focus, rightly so, on what are they seeing, what are the images, what are the videos, but also we forget about the comments section. And that is often, particularly YouTube, it can be just a cesspit. It's where predators go to target children and start those conversations, particularly if they're on YouTube and they know it's a video that children will be engaging with. It's a great opportunity for them to start that grooming process. And it's where awful bullying happens and just horrible abuse of just people being disgusting to each other. But then also there's the emotional impact of like that post I saw where, and I've seen many like that, where I feel genuinely shaken and hopeless. Like, I've just read, I don't know how many names of girls, whether it's real or not, saying that there's no hope and that they don't want to be here. And how that is affecting. And that's, again, this is what children are reading. They are reading the comments, they're engaging in the comments. It's normalizing that experience for them, and that's where they're turning to get their support and help, instead of being able to step away and be like, right, this is not where I want to be. I need to talk to someone, which ties us right back to that beginning piece about, if you do nothing else, all the parental controls in the world, ban everything, restrict access, you've got to have these conversations so that your child will come to you, because it might not even be them, it could be their friend. It could be a case of, I know someone in my class or year who has talked to me about this, or I know they're self-harming. What do I do? I don't know how to manage this. Because why should they? Again, why should children be trying to coach and help their friends who are in that state? Of course, they want to help them, but they're not able to do that. They take on that mental load. And that's what a lot of them are trying to do at the moment. So it's, yeah, please, if you ever if you are thinking about giving your child access to any of these platforms, set it up yourself first. Sorry, as a 13-year-old, as the minimum age, and use it for a good 2 to 3 weeks. Put the kind of things in that children will put in. So, type in how to lose weight, how to bulk up, how to get a boyfriend, how to get a girlfriend, how to look prettier, how to get more friends. These are all the things that children put in, and then see what TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram gives you. And with Snapchat, just set up an account and see how many random people try and connect with you and be your friend. And realize, again, if you've got a child who's just like, oh yeah, I've got 20 new contacts today, tick, 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 tick. It's just don't go there. So yes, I just wanted to get that point about the I say, the very different experience that we are having versus what children are going through.
Well, I'm now going to go and collect my daughter from school, go to a log cabin somewhere, go off grid.
Amazing, yes, it does make you want to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, live like Grizzly Adams for the rest of my life. Look, this is why services like ScreenSafe are so crucial, and why all schools should be getting in touch with you and parents should be getting in touch with you to use your services. So tell us how we can contact you, how we can book you, because obviously I've got quite a big education network as well. So yeah, how do we contact you?
Well, my website is screen-safe.com, and you can book a call on there for me if you're at school. I'd love to just have a chat, no pressure. Let's just see what your situation is. I've got different schools based on primary, secondary, size of school, so we can make it work for you. And parents, again, visit my website. I have a membership. I have lots of free resources as well that you can just use to get started. Listen to my podcast, ScreenSafe Podcast, where I try, when I get chance, to just update little tips and hints that keep you forefront of this information. Honestly, you can ask me anything. I've seen a lot and heard a lot. Nothing shocks me. Nothing embarrasses me. Whatever you've done or not done, it can get better. So don't feel that if you're a parent of a teen and you think, well, they're 15 now, I've lost it, I've got no chance. There's still things you can do. There's absolutely always things we can do to make it better. And for parents of younger children, you've got such an amazing opportunity in front of you to change this direction. I feel that our generation of children that are in this now, they've had a bit of a rubbish, it's been a rubbish time, but I do have real hope for younger children coming through, that the tide, I really hope, is going to turn, and we are going to start getting more accountability. And there's lots of people working really hard in this space to bring in new, safer, different alternatives as well, and prioritising child safety in the online space. So yeah, I know it's a really dark subject and it can feel really heavy, and I'm sort of sorry but not sorry for talking about the things. We have to talk about these things to realise why this is so important. But by talking about the worst things, what we can do is make sure that doesn't happen to your children and in your school, and we can minimise, and we can start taking back control, instead of TikTok having control over what our children are seeing, or these sextortion gangs just running free will over Instagram and TikTok at the moment. It's like, let's take back control and support our young people. So yeah, please get in touch with my website. I'm on Instagram, ScreenSafe Global, but as I said, I'm a bit rubbish at updating my socials myself, and I'm on LinkedIn as Anna Sarjantson, and I'd just love, happy to talk to anyone.
Thank you so much. And look, you're right, it is a dark subject, but I've loved your honesty. I think people are going to learn an awful lot. Even people that work in technology, I still think, we need to have these conversations. We can't be afraid of that awkwardness, like you say. We need to normalize that. I know you're super busy, so I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, thank you very much for having me, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.